All right, Chapter 59, Crime Scene Awareness. Now we know that when we're dispatched to a scene that the assessment for danger begins several blocks away from the scene, especially if we've been dispatched for a domestic dispute or we've been dispatched to a bar fight, those sort of things. Warning devices may or may not be used depending on the situation, and they're talking about sirens. Certainly sirens announce your arrival, and in some situations that could be good or bad. Staging the ambulance is something that we need to do, waiting for law enforcement. If we know that we're responding to a crime, um, then making sure that the scene is safe by knowing that law enforcement is on scene. Even if law enforcement is on scene, that certainly doesn't mean that you're out of danger. Um, the law enforcement officer may be shot. The perpetrator may be still on scene waiting for you to pull up and get out of the vehicle as well. So always be alert for possible danger. Things that would indicate that this is not a safe scene include crowds in front of a residence, people running from a residence, signs of altercation such as people fighting or yelling, vehicles speeding away, no lighting, a very dark residence, or deadly or deafening silence. When observing danger on arrival, do not exit your vehicle until you know that the scene is safe. Carry your portable radio when you leave. It not only becomes a method of communicating that you may need assistance, but it certainly can be used as a weapon as well. Stay with your crew, stay together, don't separate. Use an unconventional path when approaching, and stand to the side of the door when knocking on the door of an unknown scene or a potentially unsafe scene. Again, don't exit your vehicle until you know the scene is safe. You don't want to backlight yourself. Backlighting yourself is when the light is behind you. You become a silhouette. The person looking at you, if the light is bright enough, would just see a silhouette and not know whether you were a good guy, bad guy, law enforcement officer, EMS. Doesn't know. Listen for sounds indicating danger before you announce your presence. Fighting, yelling, screaming, gunfire, those sort of things. When I did my ride time in Chicago, we would go down to the projects in Caprina Greens, and I'm not even sure they're even still there, but the ambulance would pull up and roll the windows down and just sit and listen. And make sure that there wasn't any gunfire or those sort of things before exiting the vehicle. When you're dealing with an unsafe scene, leave the scene with the patient as efficiently as possible. Retreat to safety without the patient is not considered abandonment, but it's very important that you keep record of this. If you arrive on scene and I'll give you an example. I was responding to a domestic dispute, and it was in an apartment complex, and it was on the third floor, and it was an outside stairwell. And I was running up the stairs. That was back in the day when I could run. I was running up the stairs, and my partner was an older gentleman. He was coming from behind me. And I got to the top of the stairs where the apartment door was, and I looked inside, and there was a woman lying on the floor. And I opened the door and rushed in because I was going to help her, save her life. And about halfway through the apartment, I was met by a gentleman who put a gun right to my face and said, get the F out of my house. I wasn't going to argue with him that it was an apartment, but I left quickly. And I did not have an opportunity to treat or care for my patient until we made sure that the scene was safe. Fortunately for her, she had been beaten up, had multiple bruises and contusions, potential fracture of the arm, but didn't have anything life-threatening or serious. So, you need to keep really accurate records of that sort of situation so that you're not accused of abandonment. And it never would be abandonment if the scene was unsafe. unsafe. Always have an escape plan. Don't ever get yourself caught in a corner. Don't enter a room where now behind you is nothing but the corner. There's no egress. Always have a way to get out of a scene if needed. Highway encounters are never routine. You may be dealing with people that have altered mental statuses. There may be arguing or fighting among passengers. There may be differences among stories told by the occupants. People may be grabbing or hiding items inside the vehicle. If warning sign might be that there's lack of activity where activity should be expected, open or unlatched trunks, and then physical signs of alcohol or drug abuse. So, these things could occur as you respond to motor vehicle collisions, particularly if the occupants have been, using illegal drugs or are intoxicated. As far as your highway encounters, use a safe approach. Park between you and the oncoming traffic. Use a one-person approach to the vehicle. Discuss the plan with your partner for retreat and escape. At night, use the ambulance headlights to illuminate. Now again, if you're using the ambulance headlights and you're parked behind the vehicle, when you approach the vehicle, you're going to be backlit, and that's always not a good thing to do. Parking on the side of the road with the headlights on may blind incoming drivers and not know that you're on scene. Approach the vehicle from the passenger side, and this does provide you protection from the traffic. Now, in this particular situation, nothing here mentions the presence of law enforcement. And, we just have always been taught that, keep the scene safe, make sure that law enforcement is there for traffic control as well as for your safety. Violent street incidents, murders, assaults, robberies. You can have very dangerous bystanders in crowds that can get really unruly. You can have street gangs that are squaring off. So you can have some pretty violent street incidents as well. Interpersonal violence. This is relationship violence. This is domestic violence. Indicators that you're dealing with a domestic violence situation is when one member of the household fears the other, when you're getting different or conflicting accounts of what occurred, when one party is preventing the other one from speaking, when the patient is reluctant to say anything in the presence of perhaps the abuser, injuries don't match the reported mechanism, and then unusual or unsanitary living conditions or personal hygiene. So these are indicators that you might be dealing with a domestic violence scene. Domestic violence is a crime. It doesn't have anything to do with mandatory reporting, unless, of course, the adult is a dependent adult or you're dealing with somebody under the age of 18. And the indicators are almost identical to the same indicators you see with physical injury in children and dependent adults. Drug-related crimes, you know where your drug pockets are within your community. You know the bad neighborhoods where perhaps drug activity occurs. So when you get called there, that certainly is something that you need to be aware of. There may be some clinical evidence that the patient has used drugs, dilated pupils, pinpoint pupils, needle marks, elevation in vital signs, depression in vital signs. So there may be evidence that the patient is on something. Bystanders may be making drug-related comments, and you may find drug paraphernalia at the scene. Clandestine drug laboratories, here they're talking about meth labs. If you walk into an area where you suspect there is a meth lab, you need to leave immediately. Don't touch anything. Don't stop any chemical reactions that are already in progress. Don't smoke or bring any source of flame near the lab. Notify law enforcement if not there already, and initiate incident command system and hazardous materials procedures, and consider evacuation of the area. Now, clandestine drug laboratories, initially back in the day when people cooked meth, they used a red phosphorus method, Nazi method, which used a lot of highly explosive chemicals, highly flammable chemicals. And they would make this slurry, this really wet slurry, and they had to get rid of all the liquid in order to get their crystal. And so they would apply heat by fire to these highly explosive and highly flammable chemicals. So initially we were getting a lot of patients where the meth labs would explode or burn, and we'd get a lot of burn patients, and we knew what we were dealing with. Then the chemists figured out that they could use anhydrous ammonia because anhydrous ammonia has such a strong affinity for water that it would absorb the water and suck the liquid dry and make crystals in about half the time as you did with heat, and you didn't have to use any fire. They were still using the same nasty, nasty chemicals, but it didn't require the use of fire, so finding patients burnt or dealing with patients who were involved in an explosion became less and less as the anhydrous ammonia method to make their crystal was used. And now they're so sophisticated that they're taking a 20-ounce Mountain Dew container, they're putting their chemicals in there, they're shaking it up, and 45 minutes later they got meth. So it's still, when dealing with a clandestine lab, if you believe that you're dealing with a clandestine lab based on all the stuff that you're seeing, white gas, acetone, torn open batteries, ripped up matchbooks, lye, empty Sudafed packages, all those sort of things would indicate that you're in the presence of a meth lab. Kitty litter, vessels, tubes, things to off-gas the last step in the process of making the crystal meth. So if you see those things, you need to just back out of the area, notify law enforcement if they're not there already before proceeding. Some safety tactics concerning patient care. There's no shame in retreat. Scene safety. Dead heroes don't save lives. You need to protect you and your crew from any potential danger. Keep your crew out of immediate line of sight. Provide cover. Allow reaction if danger reappears. And notify other responding units and agencies if you're the first one on scene. And document. Okay. Cover and concealment. Cover hides the body and offers ballistic protection. Concealment hides only the body. Concealment does not provide ballistic protection. Remain constantly aware of your surroundings. Place as much of your body as possible behind adequate cover. Constantly look for ways to improve protection and location. Be aware of reflective clothing that may draw attention to you as a target. Distraction and evasion, that's wedging the stretcher in a doorway to block the aggressor. That's throwing equipment like oxygen tanks, your monitor, your portable radio to trip or slow the aggressor. Using an unconventional path while retreating, zigzagging, running, particularly if you're being shot at, and anticipating the moves of the aggressor and making a counter move before that can actually happen. And again, if you paint yourself in a corner and the aggressor goes off, you're apt to get physically injured. Contact and cover. Contact initiates and provides direct patient care. The contact provider, the person who is designated to care for the patient, provides that direct patient care, does a quick assessment, handles most of the interpersonal scene contact. The care provider observes the scene for danger. Cover provider. It's called contact and cover for a reason. Contact provider takes care of the patient. Cover provider keeps eyes on the scene. Avoids patient care duties that would prevent observation of the scene. In small crews, you may perform limited functions such as handling equipment. Now, this is in tactical safety and tactical situations. Um, you know, uh, Oftentimes, if they're calling in a SWAT team and they're doing tactical combat care or tactical care, they'll have tactical EMS trained providers with their SWAT team that will go in with the SWAT team and do some of these particular duties. Um, but you may be the EMS person that is responding with a law enforcement team that's going to, bust a meth lab, or you may be staged a block or so away while they go in and do their business, and then they may call you in to provide care. Body armor does not work if you don't wear it. Never do anything you would not do without body armor. And remember, the body armor does not cover all of your body, and you still can sustain a severe cavitation injury as a result of a blow to the chest from a projectile, from a bullet. It can hit that body armor hard enough to knock you to the ground and still cause potential contusions and cavitation, even though the ballistic doesn't penetrate the body armor. Tactical EMS differs from routine EMS in that you're extracting a patient from a hot zone when you're a tactical EMS provider. Your patients are typically trauma patients. They modify their care to meet the tactical considerations. In other words, they may respond and take care of only life threats. In other words, if they are hemorrhaging severely, apply a tourniquet and drag them out of there. As long as they have a radial pulse, there's no urgency to get an IV or give fluids or any of those sort of things. Because providing care under fire when you're being shot at is far different than the normal street care that we may provide. Treatment and transport interventions are coordinated with an incident commander. Patients are moved tactically to cold zones where they can complete their assessment, complete their care, and transport them safely to a facility. Remember that your clipboards, pepper spray, and other defensive weapons and other tools can be used as defensive weapons to help protect yourself. Tactical EMS providers are trained in raids on clandestine labs, EMS in barricade situations, wounding by weapons or booby traps. They do wear special gear. They are trained in the use of tear gas, pepper spray, and other gases. They practice with blank firing weapons. They practice hot loads on helicopters. They are aware of pyrotechnics, flash bombs, smoke bombs, those sort of things that they can throw into a building. And they do operate under extreme conditions, and they do have education in both firefighting and hazmat operations, so that they can participate in a decon if they needed to. Emergency medical services, we think of EMS as just medical, but we know that we work hand in hand with our firefighters and our police officers. And when we're dealing with a police situation, a crime, it's important that as an EMS provider that we're aware of the potential for destruction of evidence. So we have to preserve the evidence that we can, and some of the types of evidence that that they would be looking for are things like palm prints and shoe prints and fingerprints, blood or body fluids, particulate evidence, and when you arrive on scene, it's really important that you take a mental note of where everything is at, especially if you have to move something. If you've got to move something out of the way in order to access the patient, it's important that you note exactly and document exactly the position that what you moved, where that was found, and some people even snap a quick picture with their cell phone. In your documentation of a crime scene, only put the facts. There's so much speculation, rumor milling, rabbit holing, things that occur at a particular crime scene, and don't get caught up in that. Document objectively. People say things and you want to include that in your report. You certainly could preface it by this person states this, so they know somebody had said it, but it's not factual. Just document objectively. Understand that if you're at a crime, your documentation can be used in court. So you want to avoid subjective, you want to avoid opinions, and follow protocols on documentation as well. All right, so that was a really short chapter. The last 3 chapters were extremely short. And should you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me. I know that crime scene awareness is handled differently within different jurisdictions and different services. Training varies from service to service. Protocol varies from service to service. But I think most of us, when dealing with these crime scenes, don't rush in, stage, wait for law enforcement's okay to access the scene. And sometimes we're called there by law enforcement, so they should have the scene secured by the time that we get there. And if they aren't there or don't have the scene secured, don't rush in and create potential problems. So with that, I'll talk to you soon.